set. I don't know him. Well, there's a crew out there on the front row. Yeah. I think they probably do. There's a kid. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the August 12, 2002 meeting of the Haltom City Council. We welcome all of you who are here in the audience, as well as those of you who are watching live over HCTV. We begin our meeting tonight, following that welcome to all of you, with an invocation and a pledge of allegiance led by Councilmember Markham. If you would, please stand and join us at this time.
Father, we're thankful for this day that you have given us. Father, it's been a beautiful day, and we thank you for it. I thank you, Father, for the people that come out tonight, that this meeting may be handled with courtesy, and we can do good things for the citizens of Haltom City. I pray these things in thy Son's name. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get into the four presentations we have to make tonight, I want to make an announcement that beginning at our next council meeting, we will be highlighting one of our boards or commissions at each council meeting. We'll begin with the Animal Control Advisory Board at the next one, and we'll ask the chairperson of that committee to have about a 5-minute presentation, and then we'll go right down the line alphabetically. We are very proud of our boards and commissions and what they're doing and the volunteering they put in and the many hours of service they render. And we want all of the citizens of Haltom City to have an opportunity to see what we do and learn more about what we do, and who knows, that might even inspire someone to want to volunteer to serve on a particular board or commission. So be looking forward to that, and we're very excited to have that opportunity. The first of the four presentations to be made tonight is to be made by Councilmember John Williams regarding the 4th of July parade winners. Councilmember Williams, if you'd like to go to the podium, the meeting is all yours.
Thank you. And yes, I'm responsible for all the noise in the back, even though I'm up in the front. I'd like to call some people up here right now if I could. I'd like to call Bobby Arthur, Sherry Carter, Doris Deal, and Allison Long. Back early in the year, the City Council decided that we would try to duplicate what we did back on our 50th anniversary and have another 4th of July picnic and parade. And with the help of these ladies behind us, and Fran Burns, where are you at? Are you here, Fran? Would you come up here with us, please? Did I miss anybody? That's all that's up here right now. With the help of these fine ladies over there, and you've never done anything until you've been on a board with a bunch of nice ladies to work with. Understanding, no complaints, no problems, everything just went smooth. Matter of fact, they made comment a couple of times that it would probably went even smoother if I hadn't have been there. Bobby Arthur, where's she at? She's our chairman, or the chairman of the 50th anniversary. And then we had Sherry Carter, she was over the parade. Doris Still was over the parade. And Allison Long was over whatever we needed her over. And Fran's just showed up. No, Fran had a lot to do. Fran had a lot to do with the beautification part of it, making sure that decorations and stuff. And so there was also some other people that was on this committee other than these people here. We did want to thank Fran Burns with Public Works, Sherry Carter with Public Works, Public Information is where Fran works, Doris Deal with Parks, George Fowler, he's here somewhere, George Johnson with Police Department, Bud Murphy with the Police Department, Steve Milius with the Park Board, Eric Peters with the Police Department, Cody Phillips with the Police Department, and he did come in second place. I think he ate 11 hot dogs in the hot dog eating contest. He's ill tonight. George Sanchez with the Police Department, Marty Shelton, Police Department, Mary Spencer, City Volunteer. Get up here too. She's not gonna get up here. I knew she would. She was on the decorations also with my wife Vicki. And I want to thank all these people on behalf of the council and the mayor for the time that y'all put in. There was hours and hours put into it, not even counting the day of the 4th of July. When you close down a major state highway and put 40 some odd entries in it and not knowing which way they're going to go, I think the police department did a super job, and I think these people behind me did a super job. So if you'd give them a hand for what they did, I would appreciate it. In our parade, we had some participants. We had Bobby, get up here and help me. Boy Scout Pack 165. Do we have representatives from Boy Scout Pack 165? Here they come. And I'll assure you it wasn't them making the noise. I'll let you know who it was here in a minute. Could y'all come on up here, please? Yes, and also at the same time, since they work in hand, the Boy Scouts aren't going to like me to say this, but since they work hand in hand with each other, the I got it on order. Girl Scout Troop 1116, they're here tonight. These say certificate of accomplishment presented by the Haltom City Council to the Boy Scout Pack 165 and the Girl Scout Troop 1116 for their winning entry in the Haltom City 4th of July Parade. And the Senior Citizen Center Director and the Chairman of the committee, Bobby Arthur, is going to present these awards to you. Do any of y'all want to speak? How about the tallest one in the group? Would you like to come over and say something?
If all of you would turn around and face Ms. Burns, I think she wants to get a picture of all of these fine young men and women that helped make our parade very successful on July 4th.
They've had a very impressive float, so if y'all will give them a hand. Another entry was Paw Pals. And are the Paw Pals representatives here tonight? Would y'all come forward, please? I have a presented by the Haltom City Council, the Paw Pals for their winning entry in the Haltom City 4th of July Parade. And Bobby Arthur is going to present that award. Bobby said that she would do this if she didn't have to speak.
Yeah, if y'all would come. If y'all would come front and center, let's get a picture of you.
There was a star in that float, and her name is Small Brown Dog, and her dad is sitting up here in place 1. And Small Brown Dog is ill tonight. I think she's kind of camera shy. The grandmother's here. Hello, grandmother. Next, and not least, we have some participants that came in from out of town. One of them came from Washington, D.C., and the other one came from the North Pole. And we're very glad to have them. If they could jingle their way on down here. This is Santa USA. And Uncle Sam has left about 4 foot of his legs in the car. He needs special recognition because he walked all the way from the International Faith Center to the park on a set about 4 foot stilts. And Santa wore that outfit on the 4th of July. Would one of y'all like to come up here and tell us what Santa USA is, please? Do I have a representative? I've got 4 people pointing at each other. First of all, I want to thank y'all for coming out of town and spending your 4th of July with the city of Haltom City.
Thank you very much. Well, on behalf of Santa USA, which is an all-volunteer organization, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity we came and participated with you. Santa USA is a group of volunteers, approximately 1,000 people, and we visit nursing homes, hospitals, children's hospitals at Christmas time, hospice centers, and orphanages. Last year we saw approximately 100,000 people, and so we use helicopters, and we hope to come to Haltom City a little bit more, maybe this next year. But we have been in existence approximately 21 years this year, and we are based in Bedford. All of our people are volunteers. You have to be to do this in the middle of the summer. But it's a joy. It's a type of ministry. We minister to a lot of folks, a lot of the kids, and we use helicopter to land right at the hospitals at Christmas time. And we come to Cook's Children's. We do the Scottish Rite Children's Hospital over in Dallas, and make several stops all over the place. Last year, I believe we made 105 stops during December. You may have seen us on TV several times. So we get a great joy, and our people are all dedicated to bringing some joy and happiness during a particular season when a lot of people who've lost loved ones, who have sick children during that time, it's a very difficult time to get through that particular time of the year. And we have a great crew, and these folks mean so much. We have policemen, we have ministers, we have firemen and policemen and teachers and principals and kids that help us, and we just have a great time. So when you see the whirlybirds coming, you can say, well, Santa USA is on its way from the North Pole. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
On behalf of the council and the mayor and the city of Haltom City, I want to give a special thanks for y'all. Y'all could have went a lot of places on the 4th of July, and we're glad that you came to our city. And y'all are always welcome here. Thank you.
John, before you and your committee leaves, friend, did you get a picture of this committee that helped make this wonderful event happen?
You still got to speak,
John,
Bobby.
would you like to join them?
Well, I was going to kind of sit up here.
Councilmember Williams spent a lot of time spearheading this, and he had a lot of good help, and we sincerely appreciate everything that this group has done to make the 4th of July very special.
Wait a minute.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Why am I in the middle? Why
I love you, Doris.
am I in the middle?
Thank you. It is my pleasure at this time to make 2 presentations. The first one to the Northeast Tarrant County Chamber of Commerce. President and CEO Bob Hamilton, are you here? I don't believe I saw him. Well, we'll do this next time. The second presentation I have to make tonight, we have a group of individuals here to help be a part of that. A community is known by the quality of its educational institutions. And we're very fortunate here in Haltom City to have a number of quality schools, both public and private. We're here tonight to recognize the Birdville School District, and I have a proclamation to present to Dr. Stephen Waddell, the Superintendent of Schools. And I'm not going to read all of the whereases. I simply want to tell you a little bit about why this group of people are here with Dr. Waddell. We have 11 schools in Haltom City and about 7,000 students attending the Birdville School District in those 11 schools. We have tremendous quality in these schools, as is evidenced by the recognition they've recently received. Out of the 11 in Haltom City, 8 were exemplary, and there may be more than one for the first time, and I'll let Dr. Waddell address that in just a moment. The other 3 were acceptable, and we're very pleased to have Dr. Waddell and his principals here with us tonight to receive this proclamation. Dr. Waddell, would you please join me here at the lectern, please? And in just a moment, if you want to introduce these individuals and have them to come up here and stand with you, we'd be honored to have you do that. On behalf of the citizens of Haltom City and this council and staff, we want to present to you this certificate of achievement and say thank you to the Birdville Independent School District for the quality education you provide our students and for this well-deserved recognition you've recently received with this high number of students that have been recognized. So on behalf of the council and all of the citizens of Haltom City, it's my pleasure to present this proclamation. And appreciate it.
I want to first begin by allowing the people who are responsible for this. We couldn't bring the whole teaching staff and all the support staff here from all these schools because we'd have had to have held this in the stadium. But I'd like the principals who are the instructional leaders of these buildings who led the drive to these accomplishments to stand. And if you would introduce yourselves to the people, a lot of folks may not have had a chance to meet you, and what school you're from.
Dr. Weddle, have him walk in front of the microphone and say it.
Yeah.
That way we can get them all on film.
Just stand. Y'all come up here with us.
Hello, I'm Tommy Pafford. I'm the principal of O.H. Stowe Elementary. Thank you.
And I'm Marta White, and I'm principal of Birdville Elementary.
I'm Sherry Greer, and I'm principal at South Birdville Elementary.
I'm Janelle Rayfield, principal of W.T. Francisco. Thanks so much.
I'm Terry Thompson. I'm principal at North Oaks Middle School.
Joe Wilson, principal at David E. Smith Elementary.
Yay.
I'm Mike Dukes, and principal at John D. Spicer Elementary.
I'm Jerry Plemons. I'm the principal at the Academy at West Birdville.
I'm David Hadley. I'm the principal at Haltom Middle School.
My name's Alan Roberts. I'm principal of Haltom High School.
I'm Greg Farr, principal of the Shannon Learning Center.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just say a couple of things. It's impossible to do anything of significance without a team effort. I feel extremely fortunate. I'm pretty new here. I can't take credit for the accomplishments of what has been done. The staff got it done. All I could say is when I came here, I was immediately impressed with the overall quality of our people. I've been fortunate to work in a few districts. I've never seen a higher quality principal staff anywhere I've ever worked. And I'm not just saying it because they're behind me and I can't see what they're doing. The same thing goes with the dedicated teaching staff and support staff. There are very few cities anywhere in Texas that can boast of the kind of quality and the kind of achievement that Haltom City has. Honestly, I could say that this city enjoys as fine an educational institution as any group in any city in the entire state. A couple of things of note as an entire group, great accomplishments across the board. And if I make a mistake, y'all correct me. But the Academy at West Birdville and South Birdville Elementaries, this is their first year as exemplary schools. We're very proud of them and what they accomplished this year. The Haltom High School, there aren't very many high schools that are 5A high schools in the state of Texas that are exemplary, period. We have a very diverse community here in Haltom, of which we're very proud. But you find very few high schools with the diversity that we do have at Haltom that have achieved what they've achieved. I don't think there's another high school in the entire state with the kind of diversity that we have there who's accomplished what Haltom High School has done. That's a tribute to every single one of these elementaries and middle schools here, because they couldn't do it without that kind of help, and they know that. They get a little frisky when they come together and celebrate. They do some pretty crazy things, but that's because they do such a good job and they like to have fun. But what Haltom High School has accomplished as an exemplary high school, really it's unparalleled. There is not another high school that's done what they've done. This community needs to be very proud of that. So once again, it's an honor for the Birdville Independent School District to serve Haltom City. We do it with pride. We feel a great sense of responsibility to the Haltom City citizens, and we're very excited that the kind of accomplishments have been gained by our schools have been what they are. And we thank you for taking the time to notice that and recognize it. We're going to continue to try to improve in serving this city. Thank you very much again. We appreciate it.
Dr. Waddell, to you and your principals that are here tonight, we want to thank you for coming, and we appreciate the good work you do in the field of education. You make our community a better community, and that's a quality of life issue, but an economic development issue, community pride, everything. So thank you very much. While we are talking about the Birdville School District, we do have one of the members of the Board of Trustees here tonight, Sherry Dunn. Sherry, stand up and wave to us. She is a resident here in Haltom City. Thank you for coming out and being here tonight. Well, we're not through with the presentations yet. Fran Burns, I believe you have a Keep Texas Beautiful Awards presentation to make at this time.
Well, I'm here to introduce my board chairman from the Haltom City Beautification Board, so she can tell you what they've accomplished over the past year. But I wanted to say what a pleasure it's been, and for the last 14 or so years, to serve with the Haltom City Beautification Board. It's been lots of fun, lots of positive experiences, and I thank you for that opportunity. And here is Betty Porter.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council. If you will allow me, I have something prepared to read because I have 3 awards that our board has been able to win and bring back to our city. The Haltom City Beautification Board was established in 1984. In 1986, Haltom City became a member of Keep Texas Beautiful. In 1988, the group made its first application to try and win the Governor's Community Achievement Award. Along with that award was $60,000 in landscaping funds. We came in second that year. But in 1989, we entered again and we won first place. As a result of our winning, we were able to complete the beautification project located on Denton Highway, just south of 820 in front of the Chamber of Commerce. In 1990, the city joined Keep America Beautiful and fulfilled the necessary documentation to become certified as a member community. In 1991, Keep Haltom City Beautiful won a first-place national award from Keep America Beautiful. In 1998, our city won $95,000 in landscaping funds. The result of this landscaping is on East Belknap in front of the BISD administration building. And due to our excellent acquaintance with the Texas Department of Transportation and our patience and our loyalty to hold on to what we believe in, our winnings, our $95,000 winnings was actually grew to $214,000 is what that project cost. This year, Keep Haltom City Beautiful was recognized by Keep Texas Beautiful for having placed third in the Governor's Community Achievement Awards program. This is for communities with 25,000 to 50,000 population. I have a frame here for you to be presented to the city. Keep Texas Beautiful recognizes the distinguished community leadership of Haltom City, the Award of Excellence for taking the responsibility to enhance their community in the great state of Texas. We got that this year when we went to San Antonio. We also received our Award of Excellence. I think that's what this one was. We came home with 3 different awards. But our Award of Excellence for having scored more than 90 points for the past 8 or 10 years that we've been in this program. Keep Texas Beautiful judges award points to participating programs for exemplary efforts in cleanup, beautification, law enforcement, education, public awareness, waste management, and leadership. Since 1986, Haltom City volunteers have been working hard to devise and carry out programs in all of these categories. Our board annually sponsors more than 40 projects, programs, and events. We meet annually for a retreat to discuss improving our programs while considering what else we need to add. We feel as if we are giving back to the city much more than what it costs to sponsor these activities. Taking into consideration the actual cost of our program and comparing it to the benefits of volunteer labor, in-kind donations, grants, and other benefits, for every dollar the city spends, we return $8.86. We also had another recognition when we were in San Antonio. Our very own David Soriano entered the Media Award category. And I don't know if you've been able to see it or not, but we produced a video called Dragnet. It was been running on cable. And David won first place for that award. Keep Texas Beautiful recognizes the distinguished community leadership of David Soriano, HCTV First Place Media Award. We also received that in San Antonio. We would like to thank you for your support and let you know that we are all very dedicated to what we're doing. We have a board of 8 that works very hard. We meet once a month. We have a very active board, and we appreciate your support, and we try to spend your money wisely. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Porter and Ms. Burns. We sincerely appreciate the work the Beautification Board does, and this recognition that you brought to our attention tonight is well deserved. And Haltom City is a better place because of what you do, and we thank you sincerely on behalf of the council and all the citizens in Haltom City. We move now to the consent agenda, which consists of items number 5 and 6. Item number 7 has been pulled for separate action. I will entertain a motion at this time regarding the consent agenda. Councilmember Markham.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that we pass the consent agenda, except item number 7.
Okay, we have a motion. Councilmember Jennings.
That's for a second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? If you will, register your vote. And that passes. And please note that Councilmember David Averett is not present tonight. This passed by a unanimous vote of those present. We come now to item number 7. Mr. Pliska, I believe you have a presentation to make regarding the second reading.
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the council, citizens of Haltom City. Item number 7 is conditional use 005-02, consideration or action regarding the approval of an ordinance amending ordinance number 97-01515 as amended, the comprehensive zoning ordinance of the City of Haltom City, Texas, for a conditional use permit to allow for an auto paint and body shop in accordance with ordinance number 097-01515 zoning ordinance, section 26-2, conditional uses on Lot 1, Block 1, Holder Edition, containing approximately 1 acre of land located on the west side of Denton Highway, locally known as 5521 Denton Highway, and this is the second reading of the ordinance. The brief background: this was approved by City Council on first reading at the July 22nd, 2002 City Council meeting. The applicant is requesting a conditional use permit with site plan approval in order to allow for an auto paint and body shop on the site. City Council stipulated that no automobiles, motorcycles, boats, or trailers were to be sold from this site at any time. The recommendation, brief history of that, is the P&Z Planning and Zoning Commission voted unanimously to approve this at their July 9th meeting, 2002. City Council recommended approval of the case, providing again that no automobiles, motorcycles, boats, or trailers were to be sold from this site. Additionally, a fire lane shall be provided as required by the Chief of the Haltom City Fire Department. In addition, there was some discussion in pre-council about some concerns of parking or displaying vehicles in the front building setback at this site.
Okay, members of the council, any questions for clarification for Mr. Pliska? Comments, Mr. Torres? Okay, we're ready to consider action regarding the item before us. Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve the agenda item with the stipulation that there be no parking or storage of vehicles inside the front setback, and that the fire lanes be marked plainly within 10 days of the passage of this particular ordinance.
Councilmember Fowler.
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, if you'll register your vote. And that passes 5 votes in favor, 1 against. We move now to item number 8, which is a public hearing. And Mr. Pliska, I believe you have a presentation to make regarding this item.
Thank you, Mayor. City Council members, citizens of Haltom City. This item is Z009-02 to conduct a public hearing and consider the application of Ms. Nak Pham for a zoning change request from the SF2 single-family residential district to the C1 commercial district on track 1D1 J.W. Walker Survey, abstract 1654, located on the northeast corner of North Beach Street and Kirby Streets, containing approximately 0.42 or half an acre, locally known as 2020 North Beach Street. I also submit formally the ordinance for this, O2002-031-15, for this item, and it is the first reading. A brief description is, again, the site is located on the east side of North Beach Street. The applicant is requesting a zoning change in order to operate a real estate office and a Vietnamese translation agency at the site. I list for you the existing zoning and land uses, the adjacent zoning and land uses. Access to the site will be from Kirby, not from Beach Street. Legal notice regarding this public hearing was published in the Fort Worth Star-Telegram July 12, 2002. Property owner notifications were done by staff of property owners within 200 feet of the site. These were mailed out on July 12. 19 property owners were notified. Staff received 0 in opposition and 1 in favor. I formally submit a letter from the applicant, the proposed site plan of the applicant indicating the site facility. Recommendations: the P&Z Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval of this zoning change request from the SF2 single-family residential district to the C1 commercial district at their July 23rd, 2002 meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Pliska, and I will open the public hearing at this time. Is the property owner who is making this request present? Okay, I believe not. We will move then to ask, since this is a public hearing, if there's anyone in the audience who wishes to speak either for or against this request. I did have 2 cards filled out to appear before the council from a Mr. Richard Tosh and Emma Lee Tosh. I appreciate you filling out the cards. It was not necessary on a public hearing. I would assume you'd like to speak on this subject. Mr. Tosh, would you like to go first? I believe you have Richard Tosh, 3909 Kirby as your address. Is that correct?
That's right, yes. That's the property immediately to the east.
One thing I failed to mention,
Yes, sir.
we have a 5-minute time allowed for you.
I don't have my sermon with me. So. Our objection, I suppose, mainly would be the way the property plat is laid out. And I do ask you to bear with us and forgive us for not having it written out and sent in. But I think this serves as the same, that our concern is the access to the property from Kirby Street. Because of the parking, everything will come in from Kirby Street and none from Beach. And I had asked the question, and I ask the question now, and submit to the council why we don't have them gaining access to the property from the front, off of Beach, like the other businesses on Beach Street. I think having a house right there, there's a potential of creating much more traffic and parking along the side street in the residential area.
Okay, if I could, Mr. Tosh, go ahead with your presentation. We will not get away from your question. When you're finished, we'll ask Mr. Pliska to answer the question you just asked.
All right. That is our main concern. I know it's all of that's going to go commercial eventually either way. And as the church next door, we don't personally, as a church, have an objection to the zoning change. But the residential, which is my wife has inherited the house, our son lives there, and a grandson and wife live in the house on Kirby Street, 3909. And there's quite a bit of traffic at times on Kirby, and when Beach Street gets busy, it will just cause more backup getting out onto Beach Street at busy times. And I think that's probably our main concern, is the side entry off of Kirby and the parking on that. Everything is going to be done from the south, on the south side of the street of the property. And so, that is our main concern at this time, because I understand there'll be a fence put up, the privacy fence and so on. And I think the traffic problem and the parking, because even though right now it may be 1 or 2 cars, eventually we don't know what it could become, and that would, I think, create other problems. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Tosh.
Does that make anything clear?
Yes. If you would kind of remain in the area, because after Mr. Pliska answers the question you asked, it may be the members of the council might have a question for you.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to address that, but it would really be a traffic issue, which you might need clarification from the city engineer on this issue. But from a planning perspective, it is much safer to provide a side entrance. In today's society, where you have Beach as a major arterial, both supplying the city of Haltom City and the city of Fort Worth, the more turning radiuses that you have that enter off of Beach create a traffic snarl. It causes traffic to back up. We really would like to see ingress and egress on Beach from a controlled intersection via a stop sign or a signal device. We encourage side street development in this situation, also because it's not a row of suites or a large building that provides a parking lot atmosphere where you've got brief circulation through the parking lot. This is an office type entity in which, in this situation, we encourage a side street, but specifically to enhance traffic flow and for safety in this issue.
Hey, you've heard the answer, Mr. Tosh, from the city's point of view regarding that.
Well, although our grandson will not be playing in the street, it still is going to create traffic on Kirby Street that we are against, okay? And Beach Street is the commercial street, and I feel like if the people across there, they have all parking comes off of Beach, and if it's a problem, they need to slow the speed down on Beach Street, which you can't do. I know that, because we have a problem with people coming in and out of church when the traffic is pretty heavy, and it becomes a suicide trap right in there. And I know that's a problem, but what about the residents on the street? Okay, that's my concern. All right, I think that's our whole family's concern.
Okay.
All right.
Well, we have heard your concern.
Thank you.
And we've duly noted your concern.
And my other statement might be concerning this, that although we had not been present for any of the, if there were other meetings or letters sent, we didn't send any letters, but at the same time, the work had already begun on the property at 2020 Beach Street. The work had already started, and I really then think that's when we became, oh, wait, something's happening here we're not clear on. All right. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Jennings, did you have a question for Mr. Tosh?
I have 2 questions for staff, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tosh.
James, the intersection of Kirby and Beach Street, were there to be a like place there at some time in the future, would that be the city of Fort Worth doing it, or would that be the city of Haltom City?
That's a very good question. I really don't have the expertise to answer that. It's my understanding, though, that Fort Worth controls Beach
Here
Street.
comes an expert.
Here we go.
I see one coming.
Kirby's north of Springdale, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then it's entirely in our city limits. The reason I asked that is because a traffic light was recently installed in Springdale, and because it's on the border, we shared the cost with the city of Fort Worth. However, Kirby's entirely in our city limits, so we would have to pay for any traffic signal.
Okay. And the next question was brought up about parking. It looks like 5 cars are allotted for this particular
Yes, sir.
development.
It's always based on the square footage of the office.
Of the office.
Yes, sir.
So at some time in the future, if parking were to become a problem, is there sufficient space here on this plat to increase the parking for that
Yes,
area?
if you'll notice on the east side of the property, they're only going to, applying to develop just a small portion of that.
Yeah.
They're leaving that largely undeveloped. Given the use of that, being a translation agency and/or real estate office, I really don't see that much traffic being generated for that type of facility.
One other point that you brought up in pre-council, I think it's good that we share with everyone on HCTV. Originally, when this was brought before the planning and zoning for your department, the applicant was asking for C3 zoning, which is the heaviest type of commercial zoning that can be placed on property. And at the time that they requested it, you pointed out to them that the use they were attempting to get here was a C1 zoning, and that's why they ended up applying for C1. Is that true?
That is correct. She did initially come in with a C3 application. She was not that familiar with our zoning ordinance. I did explain to her, though, that more than likely a C1 at the most, or an office would be fitting for that reason.
Okay. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Councilmember Williams.
Thank you, Mayor. Engineer, could I ask you? I'm looking at a photo here, and if someone could loan Mr. Tosh a copy of theirs where he can see what I'm looking at. We have an aerial photo of the corner lot, including the church and your house over there behind it. Have we did any traffic studies on Kirby Street in that 100 block?
No, I haven't done any. I haven't had any complaints about speeding in that area. Kirby, as you probably realize, has been reconstructed just within the last 4 or 5 years, has it not? Or overlaid? Oh, we're looking, yeah, I'm sorry. This is east of Beach. I was looking west of Beach. I'm sorry.
Okay. Are you looking at the same photo I'm looking at?
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
Over on the right-hand side of Kirby, going to the east there's a number of vacant lots going that area, and then there's a piece of property there that looks like it has a very large structure on it. Do you know what that structure is? Is that a commercial?
Are you talking about on North Beach?
No, you're
South side of
going,
Kirby.
you're going on east on Beach, south side of Kirby. It looks like the first or second, probably looks like the second structure on Kirby from Beach.
Oh, this is an auto sales facility. South?
Oh, no. No, I'm talking about on Kirby Street. Right here. Right there. It's not, come on. Okay, my question then is, you haven't done a traffic survey on it, so you don't know what kind of traffic's on it. There doesn't seem to be anything on here other than some residential houses. That one rooftop is the only thing that caught my eye on it.
Yeah, those are all zoned single family
Yeah.
along Kirby.
Looks like all the way from Beach all the way to that large structure are vacant lots. Over on the other side, there's 7 or 8 homes along there. On this real estate, do you feel like the bulk of the customers that will be coming to this business, do you think they would be coming from Beach Street, or do you think they'd be coming west on Kirby?
Oh, they'll be coming from Beach.
I agree.
Right, they'll just be turning into Kirby, and then the circulation will take place on the parking lot.
So your ingress and egress will be on Kirby, but just that short period,
Right, just like,
just to the south of the house there.
yes, sir. When I went to view the site today, I would have not circulated through the neighborhood and gone back. There was enough room since they cleared out the fence. I backed up and turned around and went out.
This is supposed to be like a real estate sales office.
Right.
And you probably won't have high traffic in there at one time.
I wouldn't think
Would
so.
you?
No, it's been my understanding maybe one client at a time usually.
Okay. So I would think if it came in and out off Beach, of course you can't really say who's going to come down Kirby the other way. I think Higgins Lane is the cross street on the other end.
All the way down to Higgins.
Okay, thank you.
Further note, we promoted, there is no existing curb cut on Beach at that point with the exception of a gravel drive, which is on the north side of the property, and that's indicated on the site plan. That's why we did not promote ingress and egress off of Beach, because it really hasn't been established yet.
I got one other. Greg, the fewer driveways you put on Beach, the safer Beach Street is for people
Correct.
turning around.
What I've been trying to do, you can see this on the north of Loop 820, is have the businesses have a common driveway, because you really decrease your level of service in the far right-hand lane the more curb cuts you have. The reason I asked Mr. Pliska if there was a curb cut there, because of the zoning being a C1, the type of use, I expect very, very low traffic volumes, and I don't think it will have a difference on Kirby or Beach. Obviously, you were to open up a super target, that you couldn't make that same statement. But when you're talking about C1 zoning, which is our lowest commercial zoning, and the type of business that's specifically planned for this property, I think the traffic volumes are going to be relatively low and will not impact the level of service either way.
Okay. Mr. Tosh, would you like to approach the... You said you weren't at the P&Z meetings, and I know a lot of times...
Well, we came to the last one.
You came to the last one?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay.
Are you fully aware of the type business that's going to go in here?
Yeah, the lady said the real estate office and the Vietnamese language translation office. And then I think the other lady mentioned an insurance office going in. And,
No, it was just the real estate. It was just the real estate.
well, they mentioned insurance while they were here.
She just identified 2 businesses.
Yeah. But the second lady mentioned an insurance office, because the house is big enough, it's a house.
Right.
My wife's grandfather built it, but it has several rooms that can be used as offices, and so that's what they had said. There'll be at least 3 businesses. I don't remember that lady's name, but it wasn't Ms. Pham.
I know there's, I think back to the south of there's an attorney's office. Marvin Maloney's got an office up there, and he has like 2 or 3 attorney's offices in there.
Mm-hmm.
But I never see more than 1 car in there at a time.
With that greenhouse.
That was wondering what kind of traffic this would generate.
Yeah.
Is there a problem actually with the traffic or with the type of business or Or with the 2 or 3 businesses? Or?
No, the type of business is not our concern, I don't think. It's the traffic that it will generate, especially to the first house. That's the one we're concerned about mainly. Right. And the eventual parking on the street. Now, if they have a meeting, where are they going to park? I doubt they're going to park on Kennard's vacant lot across the street.
Probably on that church parking lot till you run them off.
They have. That has happened before when it was a family. And that's, you know, really our only concern is that we're sure, and I don't think we can be sure how much traffic it's going to generate on the residential street. And there is speeding on the street. And I don't think the other lady is here that was here last time. But there are, and it's not necessarily that this is going to stop that, obviously.
You bring up one good point about the translation. I don't really know. I don't know if I've ever seen a business like that operating, so I don't know. I can say on the real estate or the insurance end, it's going to be very minimal.
I would think so.
But on the translation, I don't know.
In the discussions during her application, she is just document translating. She would just be providing services from a foreign language into English.
Any further questions, Councilmember Williams?
No, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Tosh.
Okay, Councilmember Fowler?
One quick question on the parking from Mr. Van Nuynhuis. Can you not designate no parking zone from, say, 8 to 5 or whatever the case may be during business hours in the street, similar to what's been done on Jean Lane?
Yeah, we've done that throughout the city where it's become a problem. We just want to be very careful because sometimes what you have a tendency is if you create no parking here, then sometimes if the business doesn't expand their on-site parking, we've just moved the parking to maybe even a worse location. So, but that is a possibility.
If I could address that, the zoning ordinance is clear that they cannot use public right-of-ways for their business parking. Very clear on that. They have to circulate within the lot. So if they abuse that, there are actions that we can take on that issue without the placement of signs.
Okay. Anything further? Councilmember Fowler?
No, sir.
Ms. Tosh, you had filled out a card. Do you have anything to add to what your husband had said when he addressed the council on this issue? If you do, please come to the podium, please, and you've given your address as 3909 Kirby. Emily Tosh.
Well, our concern, of course, was the parking, and of course, if there would be other businesses. I think I addressed this problem last time I was here about other businesses that might go in there beside that, and I was given a list of what comes under the C1, which is fine with me. But we were concerned about if there's a lot of traffic there, and with the baby, where we ourselves live off of 820 out on Denise Drive off of Browning out there, and when we moved there 30 years ago, there was 5 houses, no traffic, and now it's really a lot of traffic. So I know that traffic can change, and I was wondering if you would be considering, if that got to be a high traffic area, of putting a speed bump in there, somewhere before you get to the end of Kirby, there at the stop sign at Beach and Kirby. Because it might be that there becomes more traffic as a business. And I realize that on Beach Street there is too much traffic to consider putting parking and have them back out into Beach Street. That is dangerous. And so I do recognize the need for the side entry.
Mr. Torres, I believe you have a response to her question.
We actually have a policy that addresses the placement of speed bumps. And there's a procedure you have to go through. So that possibility does exist, provided we go through that process. But of course, you really won't know until you give that business an opportunity to locate there and give it some time to see if the problem is in fact going to exist.
Right.
And then, of course, there is the issue of making no parking out there, and I support that. We've done that a
Right.
number of places in the few
I
months
see.
I've been here.
Well, that would be good. And what if it changes from a real estate or a translation agency or an insurance to something else? Do you control that?
Well, they certainly have the ability to make those kinds of changes so long as they're within the scope of the C1 zoning district. And I don't believe that they even have to come back to the city to change those kinds of uses. However, as they make the changes, if there is more and more traffic going to be generated as a result, staff will be there monitoring it and to do what we can to help. And we are sensitive to your issue. I don't want you to think that we're not.
That's a good point. In the process, if there's a change in use, there will be the issuance of a certificate of occupancy, and during those inspections of that, we also address any sort of complaints during that process.
Since this is a public hearing, do we have anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak either for or against the request for the zoning change? Okay, there being none, I close the public hearing, and we move now to the corresponding motion. I'm in line for a motion to address this request. Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Move to approve 02002-03115.
Councilmember Hurley.
I second.
Have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, if you'll register your vote. And that passes by unanimous vote. I've had a request that we take a 5-minute break at this point, so if you will, look at your watch. We'll be back in here at 25 minutes till 9.
What are you doing? Bless you.
Councilmember Henderson, your light is on.
John probably turned it on.
Okay.
I did not turn it on. I'll take a polygraph.
Okay, we're back in session, and we come now to the Visitor Citizens Forum. I have 3 cards, and I'll simply take those in the order I've received them. This time is set aside for any person having business before the council that is not scheduled on the agenda to have an opportunity to speak to the council. These 3 individuals have submitted their cards requesting to speak to the council. All comments during this section of our agenda are to be directed toward the presiding officer rather than to an individual council member or staff. Each speaker must limit his or her comments to the subject matter listed on the card and must refrain from personal attacks toward any individual. Our first speaker is Mr. R, the initial R, Downs, 5113 Nadine. And Mr. Downs wants to address the council at this time on the law under section 1701.551.
Yeah, it's criminal law, criminal penalty law the state has put out in 2001 in September. But due to the business you got to handle tonight, I'm going to pass on that till a later date.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Downs. The second request we have is Bob Watkins, 6140 Blue Spruce Circle, who wishes to address the council at this time on the city webpage.
I'd like for someone somewhere to put a stop to the misuse of the Haltom City webpage as a campaign tool by the person currently occupying our mayor's chair. I'm not sure if this misuse is illegal, but I am certain that it is unethical, and I, for one, am sick and tired of the citizens of Haltom City having to foot the bill for this blatant campaign rhetoric. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Our third and final speaker under this section is Mr. Andrew Sanders. Mr. Sanders lives at 4635 California Parkway in Forest Hill and has requested tonight to address the council on the subject of the Black Cemetery.
First of all, I'd like to say good evening, and Mr. Mayor, City Council members. There's a couple of names over here I recognize. My people have been in this area since 1860, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Black Cemetery that's on Beach and 28th Street. And I understand that here pretty soon or sometime this year there's probably going to be some kind of bond hearing on that property. And the reason I come before you is because my mother's buried there, my grandmother's buried there, my great-grandmother's buried there, my great-great-grandmother's buried there, and my great-great-great-grandmother's buried there. And if there's any way that you can see fit possible to kind of help us maintain that, because really it has become an eyesore, and the only way we take care of it now is on a voluntary basis. We try to mow, we try to keep it cut down, we try to keep it level and what have you, but it's just almost, we just can't do it. So if there is something that can be done, I hope we are informed some kind of way so that we can give you our input, give you our work or whatever it takes. We hope to be a part of it. I see the name Markham, and I'm going to end this. I know I have 5 minutes, and I see the name Fowler. You guys don't know me, but I know your people. Mr. Buddy Markham, I assume that's who you're related to. We interacted with Mr. Buddy Markham years ago. He had the store. We used to mow the lawns. And Mr. Trey Fowler, if I'm not mistaken, you went to school with one of my siblings, my younger sister. All of my siblings are graduates of Haltom High School. I was unfortunate to be a graduate of that school. I went to I.M. Turrell High School. I've just given away my age now. But I have really enjoyed this meeting. I've never spoken before city council chambers, city council people. So I hope I've done it right, and I hope I've planted a seed. Hopefully, when that does come up, something will be done positively.
If you would, Mr. Sanders, remain at your position because this item was not posted according to the Texas Open Meetings laws. We're not able to make any comment or enter into any dialogue with you at this time.
I understand.
However, the city manager is writing quickly, furiously writing your name and address and phone number. And I want to assure you that myself or other members of the council will want to get in contact with you. And can we do that at this address?
Yes, you sure can.
And this telephone number?
Yes, sir.
And we can pursue some dialogue on the comments you made regarding the cemetery.
Thank you very much.
At a later time.
Okay. Thank you.
We come now to the announcements and events portion of our meeting. And the first of these is Mr. Tom Muir. Mr. Muir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As I'm sure you've been determining, we've had some slight technical difficulties that I think we've overcome. I think we've overcome them.
Okay.
So, I apologize for the distraction that we've caused. This was all working earlier, and the gremlins got to us, I guess. I don't know. We have launched a website, a revised website with a lot of the help from our webmaster, Ms. Cheryl Lyman with CS Publications. She's done an outstanding job in assisting us in that effort. Our city website can be found at www.haltomcitytx.com. We wanted to create a website that would be of more benefit to the citizens. To do that, we created a personalized portal to the internet provided different gateways to various types of city information, give more information to citizens, and give continual access to City Hall information. We want to give citizens a personalized website. To do that, a user greeting box will appear which will ask for your name. You can enter your name or your family's name, or you can hit the space bar if you don't want anything to appear. This information will go nowhere but your computer. Each time you visit our site, you'll be greeted with your personalized greeting and the date at the top of the page. You can search the internet via the MSN search engine, get quick snippets of national headlines, enjoy other internet links like Yellow Pages, People Search, and games for kids, etc. You can receive local weather and radar. Instead of having MSN or Yahoo as your main page, make Haltom City TX your home page by clicking here down in the lower right. A portal to City Hall is provided on the main page. You can search the Haltom City site, read about upcoming Haltom City events. There are links to different city departments and topics, and subscribe to our electronic mailing list so that you can be notified of special events and activities. To make it easy to navigate through our site, we have provided different ways for you to get to the information. Find information about your city government, such as codes and ordinances, scrolling city news, and have access to city departments and divisions. In the City Council Gateway, you can read the bios about each council member and email them. View information on boards and commissions. Interested citizens can complete an online application to be on a board. Read current or past agendas and minutes of city council meetings, as well as board and commission meetings. You can send in a request or concern through the action line. If you click for Business Gateway, you can get business development information such as codes, demographics, business incentives, and other information. Under the For Citizens Gateway, you can find out about various city programs at the library, the parks, and other city departments. You can also view a calendar of all city-related events. Click About HC Gateway to see Haltom City demographic statistics such as location, population, housing, and other information. Our goal is to give more information so that you can be a better informed citizen. You can visit Animal Control to get information about the adoption of animals. On the police department page, you can get crime stats and sex offender lists. In the library section, you have access to an online catalog. You can find out about other various library programs. The planning and zoning section gives you property uses and access to information such as the land use plan and the thoroughfare plan. Now on the city council page, you can get supporting information on to the agenda. Instead of just getting the agenda, there are links to items such as the cover memorandums, aerial maps, ordinances, and other information. As referenced earlier, you can submit an online application to serve on a board or commission, and you will receive a personalized response. In an effort to be more responsive, we have several different online forms. You can submit concerns or requests via the action line, as referenced earlier. You can apply for a smoke detector through the fire department, request information from the police department, and subscribe to the Haltom City electronic mailing list. Through what we have shown you, and with more to come, you will have access to Haltom City's virtual City Hall 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That is it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Members of the council, questions or comments for Mr. Muir? Councilmember Williams.
Mr. Muir, that's all very impressive, but if a person does not have a computer, can that still be accessed? Would you like to tell them if we can have any ways that they could do that at the library?
You can access it at the library also, certainly. At the library or any place that's got an internet connection.
There's no fee for the library?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Jennings and then Councilmember Markham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd just like to go on record as applauding the fine effort. This is a fantastic tool. It can be used by the members of this body. It can be used by all the citizens of Haltom City. It can be used by people who are thinking about moving to Haltom City. This is head and shoulders above where we were. This is state of the art. This is really good, and I'd just like to thank everybody for the hard work put in to do this.
Councilmember Markham.
I don't know what else I could say different than what Councilmember Jennings said, but it is a far cry from what we had I was impressed the first time I saw it. I'm impressed every day. The citizens can get a lot of good information about their city from the website, and I applaud you very much. It's a very good job. Thank you, Mayor.
Further questions, comments? I'd like to say that as technology unfolds, things like web pages and electronic transmission of information just continues to proliferate, and I'm thrilled to see these improvements that have been made. I've gone online and looked at a number of these things, and I use it on a pretty regular basis. And Mr. Muir, my compliments to you, and Ms. Lyman, to you for the work you have done regarding the improvements made to this. Mr. Torres, any comments from the city manager's perspective?
Proud and progressive. I mean, that seems to sum it up here, and that's where we're headed. Thank you for the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Muir. Second announcement, Chief Billy Hammett, I believe you have something for us tonight.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I didn't know I was going to have to follow a PowerPoint presentation. I'm making mine.
We'll
I left mine at home, I think. The city of Haltom City was fortunate last week to join with other cities nationwide in celebrating our National Night Out. And that is a celebration of our neighborhood crime watches primarily. And of course, all of you know that's simply a program of neighbor looking out for neighbor. And it works very well, and it is the cornerstone of community policing efforts. But we were fortunate last week because we started off in Haltom City with an open house at the police department. And we opened the gates to the department up and invited everyone to come in. We had a tremendous turnout. And I don't know that we counted the people, but I can tell you that Harlan Streeter said we served about 3 times as many hot dogs as we did the year before. And I'm not sure whether that equates to people or Harlan Streeter eating more hot dogs. But anyway, our fire department was there, and we had a lot of activities, a lot of equipment on display. And Crime Prevention Board was just tremendous. Members of the council came. We appreciate you. But actually on August the 6th, on Tuesday, we had National Night Out. And members of the City Council and the staff of the Police Department, Crime Prevention Board members, Mobile Crime Watch members made visits to a host of block watch parties. And I didn't bring the list of the parties, but I bet there were 12 to 15, and some of them were 3 and 4 block watch groups together. And it was just a tremendous success for Haltom City. We're very encouraged that our citizens are helping each other, supporting the police department. And on behalf of the police department, I'd like to thank everybody that participated, council, mayor, Crime Prevention Board, all of your help. We appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Members of the council, any questions, comments for the chief?
I just want to thank you, Chief, and your department for putting that on, and the fire department working with you, and everybody on the crime board, and everyone that was involved. We had a good time. I got to ride with the chief, and the first time I ever got to ride in the front seat of a squad car. It was really a difference up there. So I appreciate the ride. Thanks for taking us out with you.
Appreciate you.
National Night Out was a tremendous experience. I had the opportunity to attend every one of those, at least stop by for a few minutes, as did a number of other members of the council. And that spirit we saw demonstrated by the people is what makes Haltom City a very, very special place. So, again, thanks to you for what you and your staff.
Thank you.
Our third person who has an announcement to make tonight, our city engineer, Mr. Greg Van Nieuwenhuis. What is going on Carson Street?
If you remember, I think about 2 months now, council passed roughly what I'd call 2 change orders. One was actually with the contractor to resolve 5 conflicts between the sanitary sewer main and the storm drain laterals at 5 intersections on the west side of Carson. And the other one wasn't a change order with the contractor, but it was the authorization for the city to proceed with the purchase of some reinforced concrete boxes at the north end of the project from Belknap to about, I want to say about 170 foot south. Since that time, both problems have been solved. The 5 locations for the sanitary sewer storm drain conflict were finished as recently as last week, and the city finished, I believe, last Thursday with the installation of the concrete boxes. One thing I might highlight on why we chose to have our own forces put in the concrete boxes instead of entering into another change order with the contractor was the contractor wanted 120 additional days and $210,000 for that work on the north end. The city crews did it in roughly 15 business days, and while the material cost was right around $35,000, that doesn't include their labor cost, but I think it's safe to say it was well under $210,000. So both that work is done. The one thing that the contractor has come across on that west side, again, is at 3 of the locations there's a gas main that needs to be relocated, and the gas company has told us that they'll relocate that either this week or next week. So within a week and a half, you should see, when I say paving operations resume, what you'll see is subgrade preparation, then the asphalt, and then the concrete. We're still looking at an estimated completion date at the end of this year, which is, I believe, what the last Carson newsletter stated. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sounds like good news you bring to us tonight. Progress, dirt turning. We see light at the end of the tunnel on Carson. Okay, the announcements and events section having been completed, we move now to item number 9. Mr. Pliska, would you like to introduce this item at this time, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Members of the City Council, citizens of Haltom City. This item is P026-01. It is a continued item. Consideration and/or action regarding the application of Mr. John Avanzini for the final plat of lots 1 through 10, Block 1, Fred White Edition, being a plat of tracts 19J, K, K1 of the AGA Acres Survey, Abstract 30, containing approximately 3.95 acres of land located on the west side of Weaver in the 2500 to 2600 block of Weaver Street. Brief history of this case. This case was tabled by the City Council at the June 24, 2002 meeting in order to address some outstanding drainage issues which might impact Salona Heights, a residential subdivision that abuts this development to the west. Also, the City Engineering Department needed further evaluation of a recently completed drainage report of the immediate area, which was prepared by Half and Associates. The purpose of this, again, is final platting of the property in order to develop the site and, of course, to meet the city's subdivision ordinance. I list for you the zoning and the utility company contacts, existing utility locations, thoroughfares. Sidewalks will be addressed in the following variants. Brief recommendation. Again, this is a continuation from last meeting. Staff recommends, however, denial of final plat request P026-01. As council is aware, staff is working with the engineering firm of Half and Associates regarding the drainage for approximately 100 acres in this area. Half has indicated that some type of detention system or structure must be constructed in order to ensure that the drainage runoff to Solana Circle area residents is not increased. As of the writing of this report, staff is trying to work with BISD, the school district, for the potential construction of a detention structure on BISD property. Staff has made the applicant aware of Half's results, indicating the need for detention. Additionally, the applicant is aware of staff trying to work out some type of agreement with BISD. Staff has asked the applicant to reconsider presenting this plat at the City Council meeting of August 12th. The applicant does not desire to postpone council consideration at this time. Therefore, staff must recommend denial of final plat request P02601. Also formally submit the reduced copy of the plat, submittal 11 by 17 copy. At this time, I'd like to turn it over to the city engineer for further discussion.
As council is aware, there were a series of items that the applicant needed to address since the last meeting. The applicant has addressed all of the outstanding items that the engineering department had at that time, except for the drainage issue. And the drainage issue is such that the applicant desires to drain all of his drainage from the back of his property to the front into Weaver Street. That will cause problems, will cause a problem for the flume that also drains to the same inlet that his water will be draining eventually into on Weaver Street. That flume will cause a backup, which will present problems not just to the Salona Circle area residents, but both to Mr. Hafley and to Mr. Chisholm, who are on either side of the flume. The engineering study was, I would say, finished last week. I had some very minor comments at that time. I did not change any of the conclusions that were drafted by the engineering firm. I just wanted some items in the document to be made more clear. And as of 4:45 today, I've received the final report. But the final report says basically in a nutshell that all development in the drainage area, Mr. Avanzini's included, will need to do one of two things in order not to have an adverse impact on the downstream properties. And those two items are either each development will have to individually have their own detention such that post-development flow does not exceed pre-development flow, or we can have one large detention area that these properties can drain into, and that detention area, if designed correctly, could handle the flow such that the aggregate flow from this development does not exceed their current pre-developed states. That, I think, would work out better for all the business property that's involved, and currently I'm trying to work with the school district in order to obtain that goal. However, at the present time, quite honestly, I'm not there yet. This will take some time. Before Mr. Avanzini proceeds, I would like to have a firm commitment, an agreement, if you will, in hand between the city and the school district. And upon having that, I think it would be appropriate for Mr. Avanzini to proceed. However, if Mr. Avanzini wants to proceed immediately, what he could do is go back to the first option and do his own on-site detention. However, again, I remind you that that's not what he's currently proposing. So that's why I've recommended to the planning department that we deny the plat at the current time.
Thank you, gentlemen, for this presentation. Before we have 4 speakers cards of individuals who wish to address this item. Members of the council, do you have any specific questions for either of these 2 staff members before we start bringing up the individuals who wish to speak? Okay, there being none, the property owner himself and the developer, Mr. Avanzini, I believe you're here in the audience. If you would, come forward, and you have 5 minutes to make your presentation. And you have a speaker's card not only on item number 9, but when we get to item number 10 as well.
Given the news that report is in, what we'd like to do is we were hoping that we'd have it ready and we'd be able to, the staff would have some kind of recommendation, but they don't have it. It's not, I think just the late getting it is not their fault. We'd like to have a month, or probably a month, and look at that recommendation, that new report, and then move forward from there. And if that's, I like to think that'd be good with this.
Councilmember Williams, hang on just a
It's
moment.
kind of repetitious, but could we have him state his name and his address for the record, please?
Okay. Yes, if you would give us your name and address for the record. I had it here before me, and I just failed to do that. These gentlemen need your name and address for the record.
John Avanzini, 9512 Watercrest Drive, Fort Worth.
Thank you.
Councilmember Jennings?
Mr. Mayor, I think at this point, based on what the applicant has requested, that I will be prepared to make a motion when we get to that point to table this item. But I do feel like we should give the opportunity to the other people to speak cards first, and at that point, I'd like to be in line for motion.
Okay. Councilmember Hurley?
Disregard.
Okay. Mr. Avanzini, if you would just have a seat on the front. We have 3 other individuals who have asked to speak on this subject, and then we'll come back to your proposal that you made just now, that we postpone this for a month or so. We'll talk more about that, about your proposal, in just a moment.
Okay, Fred Couch is on there. He told me he's not going to speak tonight, but you can get it from him if you want.
Who is that?
Fred Couch.
Okay.
So that would just eliminate one.
Mr. Hafley, Randy Hafley, I believe you filled out a card. And if you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Randy Hafley, home address 2606 Perkins Road, Arlington, business address 6333 Airport Freeway, Haltom City. Y'all have heard me 2 or 3 times up here. I really don't have much new to say. I would be supportive of tabling this, setting it aside, or whatever to study the retention possibilities. I'm familiar with that. A lot of towns, Austin, other places do use that to manage stormwater. It's probably a workable solution, but I just heard about it today myself, so I choose not to go off down the other rabbit trails. Just, something still needs to be done to handle the water, and that might well be a real good way to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Hafley. Mr. Eklund, Ray Eklund, if you will come forward, give us your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ray Eklund, 2532 Oakwood Terrace. I just wanted to say that, we, as property owners on Sloan Circle, we're concerned about the water runoff. Appreciate the council's time and the engineers and everybody's patience to see that we have a workable solution for everyone. Maybe this report and the retention idea will give everyone an opportunity to develop the property and not cause any problem for the homeowners. The sandbags that we dealt with were real, and the floodplain to me is not the problem on Salona Circle. It's really the drainage coming from the north. It's not the floodplain coming from the south. So, with careful engineering and study, hopefully we can find a solution. And if it takes another month, then maybe that's the right answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for your comments. I believe everyone who had filled out a card to appear before the council has spoken. Councilmember Jennings, if you're ready for that motion.
Yes, sir. I'm prepared to make a motion, but first I'd like to ask Mr. Evans any question. You mentioned specifically a month. Is that, you feel like that'll be sufficient time? Would you like to make it 6 weeks, a month, whatever? I'd like to work with you on the time. Also, I would like to make the next agenda item also a part of my motion, where we'll just table both of them at the same time. So
that'd be good. Mike, to answer your question, I'll probably have to ask Greg.
My current plan right now is obviously to at least have to get together with the school district. I've only heard this preliminarily, so if the school district won't work with us in this endeavor, then we're looking at the properties either going individually or finding a new area for a detention structure. So I don't know how long that will take. Obviously, Mr. Evanzini is aware that this is one of my highest priorities. Up till, I don't think we've been in contact much within the last week, but probably the week prior to that, we were probably in contact almost every day. So he's aware of the progress that we're making. He's aware of the situation. Like I said, we didn't get the final drainage report till 4:45 today. And
due to the fact that you are speaking BISD involvement here, and there tends to be a little more red tape with them, I was leaning more towards 6 weeks than 4 weeks, to be honest with you. So that would be our second meeting in September. Would that be right?
The 23rd of September.
23rd of September.
The other thing I would like to do too is Mr. Hafley has been patiently waiting, and I think he even flew in today from Illinois to come up here to speak before you tonight. I would like to get him and some of the other affected property owners and business owners together so that when we're able to come forward with this plat and hopefully recommend approval, we won't have, the 5 or 6 negative comments from the audience, that we can all have a win-win situation for everyone involved. That's my ultimate goal.
I think that would be fine for you to work that out on a staff level and just let us go ahead and table it to that.
Excuse me, Councilmember Jennings, if I could, you had
just a little bit of legal housekeeping, Mayor.
Yes.
For Mr. Evanzini, if you would please put on the record for us. I know we've been through this before, but we're dealing with a 30-day requirement to approve the plat. I know we've continued this a couple of times at your request in the past, but if you would, for the record, Councilmember Jennings has stated he thinks 6 weeks would be better, and if you're in favor of that, you understand that you are waiving your right to have the council act on your plat tonight.
That's fine. And the reason I came tonight, I talked to Mr. Pliska, and just in the outside chance, I want you guys to see me. I want people in Salona Heights to see us and say, hey, we're here. We'll wait. If it takes another couple months or a month and a half, we'll wait. But we also want to be diligent and show up when we say we're going to show up. And they've always helped us, and I know they said they were getting to the point of maybe making some kind of headway with the school. So I don't mind another 6 weeks. That's fine with me. I
Is that
appreciate it.
sufficient?
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Jennings.
Based on that, I'd like to make a motion, we table this to the second meeting in September and let the record show that the applicant has waived his right to 30-day action by the council in this matter.
Councilmember Henderson, you had your light on first, and then Councilmember Fowler.
That's for a second, Mayor.
Councilmember Fowler.
I had a question, Mayor. I guess of staff. Understanding, Mr. Van Nuynhuys, that no one sitting here or probably currently on the BISD school board created or generated this problem with South Birdville, would it be beneficial, and maybe this should be directed towards city manager, would it be beneficial to ask if we're not able to make much headway with BISD, the residents of that area as well as the business owners and property owners in that area to maybe set up a meeting with some of the members of BISD that would that we could somewhat make them understand how important this is and what a problem this has generated for us from a taxing standpoint and from just the quality of life standpoint, that it's created such a problem down in this area that if there be any problem, would some of the citizens and residents and property owners of this area.
What I might propose, at the present time, Councilmember Fowler, I'm trying to get a hold of, for lack of a better term, my equivalent, the department head over this in the school district. Perhaps it would be appropriate for myself, Mr. Torres, my counterpart, and the superintendent of the school district to get together and go over what we're looking at, make sure everybody understands the ramifications, before we take that next step. But I think it's clear that, the citizens, expect some relief. And I think the only way to solve this problem is if we all work together. And I think if the four of us, had such a meeting, I think we could get to the proper conclusion.
And quite possibly so. I was just, for lack of better terminology, somewhat strong arm and let them understand that we're serious about this, that there's a serious problem down there that needs to be taken care of. And the property at BISD is owned by these citizens and these property taxpayers and property owners in this area. So it's our property also, and it's something that we need to do something to eliminate the problem down there.
I'll plan on sitting in the meeting with Greg and the officials from the district. Maybe that can push it along.
Maybe we try that, and if that doesn't work, then we
Well, that's kind of what I was getting at. If that doesn't work, I'm sure that we would be willing to sit in on a meeting and let them understand
Take the next
importance of this. Correct.
Any further questions, Council Member Fowler?
No, sir. Thank you.
Any further discussion on the motion? There being none, if you'll register your vote, you display it showing unanimous vote with Councilmember Averett not present. Moving now to item number 11, and I think 12 is tied in with that. Mr. Paliska.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is P14-02, consideration and/or action regarding the application of Mr. Steve Kennedy for the final plat of lots 4A and 4B, Zell subdivision, being a replat of Lot 4A, Zell subdivision located between Fincher Road and Owen Street, containing approximately .4628 acres of land located in the 2900 block of Fincher Road. The applicant is final platting the property in order to sell Lot 4A and to meet the city's subdivision ordinance requirements. Again, I give you the site location, the zoning, which is SF2, single-family residential, utility company contacts, utility locations. Access to the site is from Fincher Road and Owen Street. Fire protection has been addressed through the required plat statements. The property does not appear to be in a flood-designated area, and it referenced FEMA map panel number 295. The developer will be required to install sidewalks along Fincher and Owen Street, and that again is a following item. Parkland dedication, the applicant will need to make payment to the city in the amount of $500, and payment must be received to the city prior to the filing of this plat if it's approved. I formally submit the reduced copy 11 by 17 of the plat, some site information, and the aerial. P&Z voted unanimously to recommend approval of this plat, P1402, at their July 9th, 2002 meeting.
Members of the council, any questions for Mr. Pliska before we proceed? Okay, there being none, is the property owner, Mr. Kennedy, are you in the audience? Would you like to address the council at this time or just be available for questions if we have some? Okay. Members of the council, what is your pleasure regarding item number 11? Councilmember Hurley.
Mayor, I move that we approve P014-02.
Councilmember Fowler.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion on the motion? There being none, if you'll display your vote, and that passes by unanimous vote. Moving now to item number 12.
Thank you, Mayor. This item is P1402, which is the variance we just discussed previously. Consideration action regarding variance to the city subdivision ordinance. Improvements required as to sidewalk requirements for the proposed lots 4A and 4B Zell subdivision. The applicant is requesting this variance. He has submitted a letter requesting the variance, and it is formally attached. The site is, again, currently zoned SF2. We require that the applicant write a letter during this process because the subdivision ordinance addresses sidewalks. However, P&Z voted unanimously to approve this request at their meeting on July 23, 2002, due to the fact there are no sidewalks along Fincher and there's no sidewalks along Owens. I formally submit the applicant's letter and from Mr. Kennedy requesting this from council dated July 12, 2002.
Any questions for Mr. Pliska on this request for variance? Councilmember Markham?
I'm just in line for a motion, Mayor, when you're ready.
We're ready.
Ready? Move that we pass P-014-02, which is a variance.
Have a motion. Councilmember Hurley?
Second.
Have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? If you will, display your vote. And that carries by unanimous vote. We come now to item number 13, which is the senior citizen exemption. I had requested this item be placed on the agenda tonight for the council to consider. And let me explain a little bit about the procedure of how we will go from this point. I will make an introduction of why I placed it on the agenda at this time, following which Mr. Elfrink, our finance director, has some information that is germane to this item. We have 4 people sign appearance before the council on this subject, and they'll be given an opportunity to speak at that time, and then following the citizens' presentation, then the council will be ready to move forward in this regard. I placed this item on the agenda at this time because I believe it is appropriate that we visit this issue and that the council have an opportunity to have some discussion on this matter. One of the reasons I had placed it on the agenda in conversations over the last several days with former Mayor Johnny B. Lee. Former Mayor Lee told me that the $40,000 over 65 exemption was made during the time he served on the council. Mr. Lee left the council in May of 1984, and he said that this action to raise the over 65 exemption to $40,000 was made 2 or 3 years before that. So it's been about 20 years since we have had an increase in the over 65 exemption. Now, in all fairness, that does not mean that seniors have not had some opportunities for their taxes to be reduced. Over the last 10 years, I think we've had a 4-cent reduction in the overall tax rate, which would impact seniors as well as others. In addition to that, in January of 1986, Haltom City instituted a 10% homestead exemption, and that too would have impacted the senior citizens as well as others. During this 20 years, however, property values in Haltom City have appreciated significantly. Interesting, the house I live in, the house I own, all through the years has been given an appraised value average. And over this 20-year time period, the value of my home has more than tripled. And there has been a corresponding increase, not only to myself, but to all property owners that would reflect that. I believe that this is an appropriate time to visit the subject and to have some discussion by the council. I heard earlier today that the reason I was bringing this forth at this time was political posturing, and I want to assure you that's not the case. If that were the case, I would wait until March or April to bring this subject up. I had intended to bring it up before now, a month or two ago. I'd like for this discussion to occur at a time other than during the energy that occurs around election time. I was not able to get that done. My wife has had surgery and is making good progress, and I've just got to a point where I can focus some attention on this. In addition to that, I want to point out that if you've done any analysis in Haltom City, you're aware that this subject, when we're talking about political posturing, is not a subject that will win or lose an election for anybody. So there would be no reason for me to bring this up at this time for purpose of political posturing. I wanted to get it away from the election time as far as possible and let us be able to discuss it as objectively as we could. In addition to that, this is budget preparation time, and if we are going to make any adjustments up or down, and it's certainly the will of the council that will prevail here. I have not talked with any members of the council. I have no idea what their intent or what their desire is in regard to that, but if we are going to make any adjustment, the city manager needs to know that so he can get the budget structured to reflect that. I also know the mood in the larger area. We have two cities this week, in addition to Haltom City, that are taking a look at this, North Richland Hills and the city of Euless. One of the questions that I asked as I took a look at this subject, is this something that the residents of Haltom City want? And I would refer you to a couple of matters for consideration. In June of 2000, the city did a survey of the residents of the city, and one of the questions, question number 5, was the most important issues facing Haltom City. Street repairs was number 1, crime was number 2, and property tax rate was number 3. So based on that, in part, I believe that is a matter that the citizens of Haltom City are concerned about, the tax rate. My business that I work in every day is in the area of insurance and financial services. And interestingly, the market I work in is with people 55 years old and above, and I have many clients here in Haltom City on all sides of the political spectrum. And part of what I do is sit down with people and take a look at what they have and try to make good decisions and help them find ways to allow their money not to play out before they do. And as I talk with seniors and as I work with this group of individuals on a business basis, it is becoming more and more apparent that these are the issues senior citizens face. Number 1 is the cost of prescriptions. Number 2 is the taxes and the upkeep on their home. How long will they be able to stay in their home? And then number 3 is insurance costs. The recommendation I'm making tonight that the council consider will make up make up to a $45 tax reduction. That's not much, but if you're on fixed income, every little bit helps. My own mom lives over in Weatherford, and she's pretty upset this last week because her Medicare supplement had gone up $12 a month. Now, to you and me, that's not a whole lot, but if you're on fixed income, that's a whole lot. So every little bit can make a difference, and even $45, while that doesn't sound like a whole lot, can make a big difference. How did I get to going from 40,000 to 50,000? That was a question our reporter from the Star-Telegram asked me last week, and let me take just a moment to explain that. Of the cities in Tarrant County, the city of Hazlet, Pantego, Bedford, Arlington, Kennedale, and Mansfield give to the seniors, the people 65 and over, a $50,000 tax exemption. In addition to that, Colleyville has 45, which is right behind us. Grapevine has 60,000, and Southlake has 75. Others entities who do the 50,000 are Tarrant County, the hospital district, and the college district. I believe for us to go from 40,000 to 50,000 is reasonable because it is consistent with these factors that I've just mentioned. Now, I talked about a moment ago that the suggestion I was making that we consider tonight is the $10,000 increase from $40,000 to $50,000 at a 45.575 per 100 tax rate. That's how we get to the $45. We do have 2,258 households in Haltom City who currently take the $40,000 exemption. If we increase that, and you see on the handout that you have, that would have a budget impact, worst case scenario, of $102,000. Now, all of the houses in Haltom City would not be fully impacted by that, and I understand talking with folks over at TAD today that the figure's probably closer to $70,000 to $75,000, but there is budget impact if we take this step, whatever that might be. Now, the $102,000 is only 0.4% of our general fund budget, so you can see how significant all of that is. And I will mention that this year, based on figures that our finance director gave me earlier today, we have $24.5 million increase in assessed value evaluation after exemptions. And you multiply that out by our tax rate, and that's $112,000 of income that we have now that we did not have last year. Now, I know there are a lot of issues. There are a lot of areas we could talk about. One of them has to do with the state initiative to freeze taxes for seniors 65 and over. I've talked to people in Austin, and they say it's not going to happen this session. They're not even sure there will be enough support to even get it on the floor for it to be discussed. So I mentioned that just for whatever that might be worth, that points out why this might have some relevance today. The bottom line, if you'll notice on page 2 of the handout that was given you, the average 65 and older resident of Haltom City gets a $168 annual tax break. $168 currently. If we were to go to what I had asked for, the additional $10,000, we're asking for another $45,000. That's $215, $213, something like that. But I give you all of this information, and Mr. Elfrink in a moment will give you some more that he's been able to gather today. And I will tell you, I had done a lot of research independently, and my numbers came up exactly like his did. So I know that makes me feel good about my numbers and makes me have confidence in the numbers he has as well. The question I have is, if we can't go 10,000, can we go a smaller amount? I'm certainly open to anything. I wanted to bring this up tonight so we could have conversation and allow this matter to be discussed, and then the council make a decision and we move forward with whatever decision the council makes. So much for my comments. Mr. Elfrink, you have some information, I believe, and after Mr. Elfrink presents this information, we'll open up to the council an opportunity to ask Mr. Elfrink questions about the material he's going to present. If you do not have the 4-page handout, if you'll raise your hand, one of the gentlemen will be sure you get a copy of that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Glad everyone has a copy of what I've got to go over here. Last Wednesday, when this item came up on the agenda, the mayor and 3 other council members asked individually for some information, some background information on this subject, and I'm more than glad to try and comply and produce some information that's objective, accurate, and even-handed here. On this 4-page handout, you will see a comparison from last year's appraisal roll to this year's appraisal roll. You will see where the roll went up, the entire appraised value went up from $1,371,000,000 to $1,404,000, an increase of a little over 2%. I also have on this first page listed the various exemptions, properties that are excluded from being taxed with our property tax. You will see our agricultural amount went up by 75%. We also have an exemption for disabled veterans. Then on the third line, you will see the over 65 exemption, which increased by 3% in the past year, going from $80,967,000 to $83,306,000. And as the mayor mentioned, you'll see there are 2,258 accounts. And the amount that is exempted by that $83 million is $379,671. This is tax income that we are not receiving. The average exemption, therefore, per account, as the mayor mentioned, also is $168. We also have exemptions for disabled persons, a free port inventory exemption, and we have abatements for 2 major commercial entities in town, State Fair Foods and Medtronics. And then we subtract these different abatements from the number at the top, and we have the net taxable value at the bottom, which is the amount that we are able to assess property taxes on. Although there is a small amount that's not shown here, relatively small when you're talking about billions of dollars, for properties that are under appeal at this time still. I think it's about $38 million, the minimum value of those properties that we can assess. The additional revenue, as the mayor mentioned, I have that on the bottom line here. If the worst case scenario were that every account that currently is an over 65 account, if it were eligible for the full $10,000 exemption, would be an impact on the city of $102,897. On the second page of this handout, if I could direct your attention to that, I've tried to present an apples to apples type of comparisons, because with your different communities that you have in Tarrant County, you have average values for a residential home ranging from under $50,000 to over $700,000, as in the case of Westover Hills, certainly in a phenomenal amount. The average value is a key point of comparison, though, and so I produced this chart showing what the tax exemption amount is based on the average value for each of these cities. Haltom City is highlighted going across the fifth line from the top, and it shows that the homestead amount that is exempted for this average value in Haltom City of $72,922 is $33.23. The over 65 exemption, if someone who qualified for the over 65 had this magic average value, would be $182.30 for a total in the next column of $215.53. I think then the next column is the key piece of information for this particular page. It shows that of the average residential value of the amount of taxes that we could receive from it, we are giving up 65%, which places us fifth from the top of communities who are giving up a certain percentage of their average residential value. You have a high there at the top of White Settlement giving up 93% of its average value. And a low down at the bottom, of course, you have two communities there who are actually giving up nothing because they have no exemptions whatsoever. At the bottom in a small box, you will see a maximum amount of tax that is exempted being $496, an average that calculates to $213, and the Haltom City amount, which is $215, just a little bit above the average. Are there any questions on this page?
Mr. Elfrink, I want to thank you before members of the council, if they have any questions for you. I want to thank you for putting this together. I know it came together, you put it together quickly, and I appreciate it. I want to be sure we had good information on which to have a discussion, and you've provided that, and I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I'll extend my thanks on to the staff of Betsy Price, the tax assessor collector. Her office did some special work to give us some numbers on this. They ran some special reports.
Okay, questions for Mr. Elfrink, Councilmember Jennings?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pat, if you'll look under percentage of total property tax exempted, we're at 65% in the column you're talking about giving up. Were the council to increase that exemption by $10,000, how would it affect that percentage? What would it go to?
I thought about that question before I got to the podium.
You knew I was going to ask you that.
I would say it move it up by maybe 5 to 7%.
So roughly 70 to 72%.
It would push us up a couple notches higher there, certainly.
That's what I needed to know.
Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. Pat, the mayor had pointed out 5 cities in Tarrant County that presently give $50,000. And I believe he's talking about Pantego, Haslett, Kennedale, Mansfield, and Bedford. I believe the ones that he mentioned, if I'm not mistaken. Am I reading this correct? Their average home value is all over $100,000. Am I reading this correct?
That's correct.
That is correct.
And our home value here in Haltom City is roughly $73,000.
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Members of the council, any further questions? Okay, there being none, we move now to accommodate those who have requested to speak before the council regarding this issue. I have 4 speakers cards, and I want to remind you again, and I don't think I need to, but let me do so, that you have 5 minutes to speak, and that all comments must be directed toward the presiding officer, and you must limit your comments to the specific subject matters noted on the cards and must refrain from personal attacks toward any individual. And I'll simply call these in the order I received them. First of all, Barbara Mercer. Ms. Mercer, are you here tonight? Okay. I think Ms. Mercer is not here. Bob Watkins, I believe you're the second speaker. If you would, give your address at 6140 Blue Spruce Circle.
Well, despite what I've heard, this, excuse me, this still sounds political. What kind of a middle midget would put forward any change in our taxing structure before having any idea what our next budget will entail. Perhaps a whiny malcontent like ex-Mayor Jacko or someone scrambling for an issue or accomplishment to headline our next mayor's race, whatever. I turned 65 years old in February, and as do most conservatives, believe the American people are overtaxed by almost all entities and would like some relief. But I don't believe that this is the body to address for that relief. My personal 2002 property value on my home, my wife and I's home, excuse me, Tarrant County, less the $50,000 exemption, is $112.64. Tarrant County Hospital, less the $50,000 exemption, is $95.95. Tarrant County College, less the $50,000 exemption, is $43.62. The BISD, less the 10,000 exemption, is $1,035.94. The City of Haltom City at $40,000 exemption is $190.93. Excuse me, for a total of $1,479.08. I'll do the math for you. BISD's portion of our total annual tax is 70%, while our Haltom City portion is just less than 13%. Therefore, an additional 10,000 exemption from BISD would be a savings of $3.02 per week, while the same $10,000 additional exemption for the City of Haltom City would be 88 cents per week. These figures hold true for each $10,000 exemption, no matter what your home is worth. That being said, what items should the City of Haltom City cut to recoup a reduction in city income? The Senior Citizen Center, Senior Transportation Service, street repair, library, police, fire, what? I believe that my wife and I will use in excess of the $1.83 each per week that we are currently paying with a $40,000 exemption. Even on our respective last days above ground, we'll be chauffeured from St. Luke United Methodist Church to the Birdville Cemetery on Haltom City streets and escorted by Haltom City police officers. On the other hand, we haven't had a child attending school in over 23 years and certainly don't feel that $19.92 per week is a fair amount to be taxed by the BISD. I feel that every resident and business should pay their fair share, but this is not a fair share for senior citizens. In conclusion, again, this is not the body that is overtaxing senior citizens. Our fine city manager, finance director, and city council, as well as our inept person currently occupying our mayor's chair, needs to move on with the budget process. When that process is complete, then they can help us in any way possible to do something about us being so disproportionately overtaxed by the BISD. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watkins. Our next speaker, Mr. Ralph Kelb. Mr. Kelb, you did not give us your address, so when you come to the podium, or if you would give us your name and your address for the record, please.
My name is Ralph Kelb, 4600 Nadine Drive in Haltom City. And I was brought into all this. I wasn't aware it was happening, but I thought it was a real good idea because my day has been rather rough because I lost my personal physician. He's going to Scott White because he's not making enough money off of Medicare to earn a living here in this area. So we had to find us another physician. Well, come to find out that Medicare isn't paying near as much as they did. And as a result, the people that are having this problem of paying taxes are going to have a lot harder time of paying the taxes. Every year that we've lived here in 43 years, and every year it has our taxes have gone up a little bit. And so therefore, I'm in favor of this $50,000 benefit that we could get on our taxes, because we need, and our money is so much, and that is it. And it's the federal government's tightening up on us, and we're going to have to do something or the other. So, if you will, consider it, please.
Thank you, Mr. Kelb. Our next and final speaker, Jack Lewis, 4600 Sabelle.
Thank you, Mayor. And we've heard a lot of figures tonight. A personal attack by a former or ex-mayor's husband to the mayor, and I do not intend to respond to that, but I will stay with the issue. We've talked about a lot of figures, facts, figures. I'm Jack Lewis, former mayor of Haltom City. I left here along this time frame when the last time that we have received any tax relief for seniors in Haltom City. And I want to thank our the best finance director in Tarrant County here, Mr. Pat, for bringing these figures up. And I notice in these evaluations, which are one of the main factors that's increasing our taxes, is has gone up 8 of the 10 years and then up to 12% per year. And I know you can take all of these figures and make them sound good. One of the speakers made some that didn't make a lot of sense, but they do bring out his side of the story. Now, we have some seniors in Haltom City. I know some. They're paying over $900 a month.
Mr. Lewis, if you don't mind, you need to address
okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. But some of you, Mr. Mayor, you may have seen this pill splitter. There are people in Haltom City today, and I'm talking about needs. We've heard the figures, and I have some here on my own report. But, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if you've seen a pill splitter. There are seniors that are actually splitting pills in order to live. Pills that have cost $7 to $9, and I know one particular, $7 to $9. They split it, not to do as the doctors recommend, to reduce the dosage, but because of the cost. When you split a pill that costs $8, that means it's $4. And these people are on fixed incomes. Now, I can pay the taxes, and I will. God has blessed. But I'll say this, there's a lot of seniors that are on fixed incomes, and we've heard one, and others, and there's some here tonight, one that's paying over $1,000 a month, her family, for medicine. So these are needs. Now, these figures, Mr. Elfrink's figures show here a bar chart of how the valuations have increased. Now, to bring this down to our 5-minute situation, I have the statement from 2000 from TAD, Tarrant Appraisal District, 2000. Haltom City taxes, they list 5 taxing entities. With the silver-haired legislature in the state, and I've heard before where you guys say, well, the state's going to do this. The state's probably not going to do it, like was said. It's going to take a big effort because all of our taxing entities are starting to and will clamor for more taxes. Well, we got problems on both sides, but we need to work together. This $10,000 increase, if it's granted, will be in line with the rest of the county. It shows on this TAD report right here. It's a statement they send out to everyone. The county, $50,000 over 65 that you sent to the hospital, $50,000. By the way, the hospital, they have already indicated they're going to raise the rate. Now, the valuations are raised as we have seen, and they have a $6 billion surplus. This is the hospital district. This is only one. The college district, $50,000 over 65. Several of our cities over 65. Now,
Mr.
we have
Lewis,
not had
excuse me just a moment. You have 1 minute.
1 minute, thank you. So we are asking simply the $10,000, looking at figures again, on my property went up $45. That's 38%. Now, if this exemption was given, that means it would only go, my taxes would only go up 25. And just figure this. That's less than $1.50 a month. If the city cannot afford to grant $1.50 a month to us seniors here in Haltom City, we'd forgive you. But we would ask you to consider to give us tax relief. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, before you leave, would you state your name and address for the
I'm
record,
Jack
please?
Lewis. I live at 4600 Sabelle in Haltom City. Thank you.
Thank you. All of the people who have requested to speak on this matter have done so, and we're now ready for the council. Councilmember Fowler, I believe you have your light on.
I just had some questions, Mr. Mayor. Of course, I'd like to thank Mr. Kelb, Mr. Watkins, Mr. Lewis, all for taking time to come tonight to discuss some of these things with us. And I'd like to thank the mayor for putting it on the agenda. Although I don't necessarily agree, I look at this chart, and we can twist and tweak numbers in almost any direction. I look at the city of Richland Hills, our neighbor, and they give an $83.47 tax break for their seniors, which Haltom City provides $215.53. North Richland Hills, which has $120,000 appraised value, they give $302 to their seniors. We still give $215, which is roughly $85 difference. They give $85 more, and yet they have $40,000 more taxable value on their average residential property, or average property, I guess. I look at what on the average after the abatement for our seniors, after their homestead exemption, their over 65 exemption, the average household pays $116.50 a year, which is $9.70 a month. That's the numbers that we're given. After looking at this, I'm open to any suggestions, but I just like to ask. I realize it's very difficult on seniors, but I look at our tax rate. When I was on this council 8 years ago, our tax rate was 48 cents per hundred. It's 45.5 cents currently. So we've actually done everything we can, or this body and the other bodies that had served here prior to me during the past 8 years have done everything they can to keep taxes down. I look at you want to talk about where the taxing is, though, look at our school taxes, which is correct. I look at every tax piece of literature that I get for the different properties that I have in this community, whether they be commercial or residential, and the biggest majority of our taxes go to school. If we're going to, in hospital district and everything else, if we're going to go and talk about things, let's go talk to the entities that tax us the most. You come into Haltom City, and for the 45 cents we provide police, fire, recreation, senior citizen services, library services, all the administrative things. We use that 45 cents more than any other thing we use. Of all the taxes we pay, the least amount we pay is what we use the most. So if we're going to go as a body and try to attack things and do things for seniors, why don't we go to the entities that tax us the most? Thank you.
Councilmember Hurley.
Mayor, I'd like to compliment Councilman Fowler. My sentiments are with him. I am a senior citizen, and I'm in the same boat. I'm on fixed income, Social Security, and I have high prescription bills which exceed $5,000 a year. I would be much in favor of doing anything we could for the senior citizens on a tax break, but my primary concern really is maintaining a city's situation, the quality of the city services and staff that we presently maintain without cutting to the quick. I don't see it where we could cut too much, but I can't honestly say that because the city manager hadn't even told us if we've got a balanced budget or not, and I feel like that it's inappropriate at this time before budget work sessions even start to discuss this, because this would put us in a budget work session with a deficit to start with. And I believe, in all fairness, that we should continue to maintain the same quality of services that we have now, which we do get a lot of service for our tax dollars. And my taxes are about the same thing as what my garbage service is, about $8 and something cents a month, which I happily pay. If we can do something to give a tax break to senior citizens, I'm all for it. But let's do it intelligently and not rob our our city of any quality services that we've got or any stable financial situation that we're in, because we're in a long-term debt service that's going to last for quite a few years. And it depends on how well that this staff manages our finances as to whether we maintain our bond ratings or whether we have to go up on taxes or not. It'd be kind of useless to give a tax break this year and next year come back and find we're in a deficit and we're going to have to go up on taxes. It'd be kind of foolish. So I move that any discussion on the 50,000 exemption be deferred till after a budget work session where we know what we're talking about.
Is that in the form of a motion?
If the council wants to accept that, yes.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second on the motion that's been presented? Councilmember Fowler? I'm
Yes, just
sorry.
for clar-
Councilmember
Oh, I'm sorry.
Williams had his light on first. Is that for a second?
No, I haven't spoken on the object yet.
Okay.
Y'all go ahead and make your motion in a second, and I'll take over.
Yeah, I was going to ask for clarification. Councilmember Hurley, was that to rediscuss this after the budget process?
I think the whole thing should be intelligently handled after we find out what our budget is. We don't know if we've got a balanced budget or a deficit budget at this time. If we've got a surplus, by all means, we could turn a surplus into a tax break for the seniors, if it's at council's will at that time.
Did
After
he
we
answer your
present the
question?
budget.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second? Councilmember Markham?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Councilmember Williams?
First of all, let me apologize. I didn't mean I'd take over. I meant that I would begin. I had spoke with Mr. Elfrink. I've got two emails here in my hand. One of them I'd sent to Helen Harris and copied them to Pat Elfrink and Richard Torres, and the other one I'd sent to Pat Elfrink. Both these emails are dated mid-March. I know the mayor said that he brought this up, or thought about this a couple of months ago. Mr. Patino, that used to sit in Mr. Fowler's seat, had a dire desire to do this for the seniors, and I admire Mr. Patino for it. He had placed an item similar to this on the agenda one night, but the wording of the way that he had worded it, I wasn't able to second the motion. I spoke with Mr. Elfrink, got some information from him, and I'd even asked to have it put on the agenda shortly after March. I got the reconsidering the time, March being a couple of months before May, election in May. I was up for re-election in May, so I didn't want people to think that I was doing this as a political tool to put that on the agenda to bring it up. So I left it alone for two reasons. One, I didn't want it to be a political tool, and number two, I checked with Mr. Elfrink, and he told me there was no way to tell me exactly at that time without research the impact that this would have on Haltom City. He did speak with me and tell me that it would have a tremendous impact. It wasn't going to be something, when you figure from the end of the person being taxed as that being a small portion, like Mr. Lewis said, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but when you turn it around and multiply it times 2,280 households, it mounts up quite a bit.
Pardon me, Councilmember, may I clarify something? In March, the discussion was centered on freezing the tax rate,
Right.
not the amount of taxes. Thank you.
Right, and I didn't even do that at that time because I was afraid it'd be too political. So I left that off, and also, but I did ask at that time what kind of impact that had. I've got a question. Prior to this being placed on the agenda, has anyone on this board approached you about the impact that this would have on the city?
No, sir, they did not.
What about the city manager?
No, sir.
Okay. I feel this item has been placed on the agenda in poor timing. Mr. Torres, the city manager, and Mr. Elfrink, our finance director, worked endless hours preparing a budget that will spend Haltom City funds wisely. A similar item was brought up on the council before the last election. Placing it on the agenda before election is no political trick with some of the older political people in here that know how to work them. I have not been active in politics until 1997, which time I learned how some people don't care who they work or what they do to get their way. Dangling a $10,000 exemption is a cheap shot, using the over 65 and to play them for fools. Many of the over 65 homeowners in Haltom City live in homes valued less than $50,000, which means they would pay no tax at all. These citizens could use the most help. A former political faction once accused a local hamburger business owner of trying to buy votes by giving away free hamburgers. It had rallied. This is about the same thing. Lower your taxes, make me look good, and I'll put the burden on someone else. Former Mayor Jack Lewis did not give you this exemption, but now he's over 65 and he wants you to give it to him. I would like to not have to charge anyone over 65 years of age any taxes. But a little bit all put together goes a long way. One has to wonder why this was not brought up long ago instead of prior to the mayoral election. Texas Electric, do they give us a discount for over 65? Do the major gas companies, when you pull in, fill your car up, do you tell them you're over 65? Will they give you a discount? I haven't tried it, but I don't think they will. There are people that sell products for profit, and they do not give anything away. I feel we would be better serving the citizens if we were to watch their tax dollars more cautiously. Why not work on the state and government, as Mr. Cobb said, Mr. Lewis said, and see if we can get these health bills and drugs brought down? I polled a number of senior citizens and found most are not unhappy with the city tax, but are burdened by the school tax. Even though they're frozen at a high rate. I will not give the names or the addresses because the last list I was compiled with concerning a person returned a letter investigated saying how many people were voters, how many weren't voters, how many were children, and so on. We are not here just to help the voter, but to help everyone involved. Haltom City citizens should not be judged on who voted or who not voted. Even though they were frozen, BISD taxes are much higher than our city taxes. When one of our elderly dials 911, I want quality service there, and I want it less than 5 minutes. I commend our fire department and our police department on their response time, and we've got the men to do it. 102,000, what is it, 102 or 70,000? If it's 102, that's 3 firemen. 70,000, it's 2 firemen. Same with your policemen. That's how many fire service people that we could hire for that amount of money. Without seeing the budget, I'm in no position to give any tax break dollar away until I see the debt and what is projected on the income. We lost Winn-Dixie. Kmart could go. I hope it doesn't. We have one of the best Kmarts in Northeast Texas and one of the highest grossing stores. Also, by increasing the exemption without the known impact, it could cause a cross-board tax increase, which nobody wants. Haltom City's came a long way since 1998. When this senior member first came along, there's been much unity achieved. I would hate for that to go away. We must all work together to ensure our children and their children have the services needed to maintain a high quality of life. Let's quit grandstanding and arguing and trying to get elected or re-elected and do what's needed for Haltom City. Raising exemption is not out of the question. It is not an option. When the budget is complete, then we'll take an intelligent look at it. At that time, we can decide whether or not we can afford it. We had a goal-seeking workshop a few weeks ago, and nothing was brought up at that time about reducing the taxes for the elderly. And I think at that goal-seeking workshop, if there was time to bring it up, that would probably have been time when we were working with the rest of our colleagues. I have a couple of emails here from some citizens, one of them's in the audience tonight, asking me if we would mind leaving it like it is, the rate where it is, not raising the exemption. I would like to raise it up as far as I was concerned. I think after you're 65, I'd like to give you the taxes. But we've got firemen that are highly skilled that work for Haltom City for less money than what they could go to other towns. Same with our police department. They're highly skilled. They work here because they want to live here. We each got to pay our own little part. Friday, I went down to the Senior Citizen Center, and I'll pass this to the city secretary. before they had their dinner down there, I went down there and talked to them. I took a survey. I said, I don't want anybody to put your name, address, or phone number on this piece of paper. I want a simple yes or a simple no. And I stated to them that this was not planned on. It's not a long-term deal. Had we done it back in January, and had Richard and Pat been able, Mr. Elfrink, Mr. Torres been able to know this in mind going into there, then all the hours they spent working on this budget, they could have that in their mind working on it at the time. Now, to come up to these gentlemen now, the 23rd and the 24th, we're going to be working on the budget. And that's not that far off. And to tell these gentlemen they got to take $102,000 out of the budget is unfair to them after all the work they've done. I would like to request that the senior citizens bear with us one more year, if you can, $40, $45, or whatever it is. We'll take a look at it, and next year we'll come back and try to make a place for that $102,000 deficit. But I'm not campaigning because I can't be reelected again, so I don't know why I'm talking so hard about it. But these senior citizens down there that I polled, 3-1, said they would rather keep it like it is, give Haltom City a chance to get on its feet and relook at it next year. And I don't know how better to find out what the citizens of Haltom City want than to go out to the people that are involved and ask them themselves. Now, I know Mr. Lewis had an article in the paper today that we were paying our high-end people too much and not paying our mosquito sprayer enough. There's educations, there's qualifications. That's how it's been. Haltom City didn't do it. Corporate didn't do it. It's just that your corporate people, your managers, they make more money. Your people on the lower end make less money. And Mr. Lewis, I would love to give the mosquito sprayer more money if we can figure out a way to do it in the budget. But y'all are asking us to give them more money. You're asking us to come out and put curbs and gutters on our street. You're coming out and asking us to put asphalt. We've got all these problems you want fixed, but then you want to reduce taxes. And like I said in the paper, until the asphalt ferry comes by, it ain't going to happen.
Any further discussion on the motion and second we have? Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just got one brief statement to make. I'm looking at the rate that we're at now at $40,000, and I heard tonight that this took place in 1982. So since 1982, we've been at this $40,000 rate, and it makes me wonder what they were thinking 20 years ago when they set our exemption rate at that level. At that time, it had to be head and shoulders above anybody in the Metroplex to have been at $40,000. And what that equates to in my mind is for the last 20 years, the city of Haltom City has pretty much given away the tax form. I don't want to look back 20 years from now and have some person sitting up on this body saying, well, back in 2002, those people pretty much just lined up and gave away the tax form again. I certainly sympathize with the senior citizens. My mother lives on a fixed income. She has medication bills. Unfortunately, the city of Haltom City didn't cause that. We are responsible to 40,000 individuals that live here. Certainly, we are also responsible to the seniors. And my heart goes out to them. My heart goes out to everyone that lives on a fixed income. Medication is unbelievably high. But pretty much what we stated here tonight is the problem. The city of Haltom City is not the taxing entity that's causing the tax burden. It's the BISD. And the only way to handle that is to approach the BISD and ask them for some type of tax rollback. And I certainly, for one, I would be part of that. I pay my city taxes. The seniors out there pay their city taxes. I don't get that $40,000 exemption, but that's the way it is. I'm not 65 years old. When I am 65 years old, I will certainly take advantage of everything that's offered to me. But at this time, I have no other recourse than to vote for Councilmember Hurley's motion. I see absolutely no way in good conscience that we can grant any type of increase in this exemption without knowing the ramifications of what it's going to cause us once we sit down and we look at the budget. Certainly, if at budget time there is excess funds there, I would be in line to turn that into some type of exemption. But until we determine that there are funds available, I'm certainly not going to write a blank check and hope that we're able to cash it at a later date. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Jennings. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, we have a motion and a second to postpone this until after the budget session. Okay, if you will, register your vote. And that shows 5 in favor of the motion with 1 opposed. Gentlemen, we've been here a while. We need to take a stretch break before we go on to item number 14. Let's do 5 minutes, if you would, and come back at 10:15. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are back into open session. We come now to item 14, and Fire Chief McIntyre, I believe you're ready to make a presentation.
Mayor, Council, agenda item number 14, or resolution 2002-025-05, is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the city of Watauga for automatic fire protection aid. Over the last couple of years, with development in the Park Glen area of Watauga and along our northern boundaries of Western Center Boulevard and Watauga Road, we've experienced the need to share some fire protection resources in that area. Through a verbal agreement, we've done that over the last 2 years, and it's just become necessary with the construction and the number of inventoried structures in that area that we need to make a formal agreement out of this. And so we're bringing that to you tonight.
Gentlemen, you've heard the presentation. Any questions or comments for the chief? Councilmember Williams.
I'm in line for a motion.
Yes, sir.
Make a motion that we approve resolution R-2002-025-05.
Okay, we have a motion. Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Mayor. That's for a second.
Councilmember Hurley.
That was for a second.
Okay, any discussion on the motion? There being none, if you'll register your vote, I will display it. And that is by unanimous vote. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Item number 15, City Engineer Greg Van Nieuwenhuis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. What I have before you is what was originally change order number 2. I guess it still is the Broadway Avenue project. This change order started out to be a rather simple change order, less than $15,000. That didn't even need your action. It was to replace some of the water main underneath the bridge structures with ductile iron pipe instead of going with PVC. In that time, we have found a handful of locations additionally where we have water mains crossing sewer mains at less than the state required minimum distances, so we have to change that pipe to ductile iron as well. Additionally, this change order covers 2 other small items. One item is the inclusion of 2-inch water services. The project only called for all 1-inch, but we have come across a couple of 2 inches, so we put a dummy quantity of 5 or 6 into the bid documents in the event that we need that many. And then the last item was we decided after looking and doing a further evaluation of our sanitary sewer evaluation study that it would be best to reroute some sanitary sewer from Larry towards the bridge structure to the west instead of going across Blakeman Steel's property. There's an opportunity that Blakeman Steel may be able to vacate some of the property, and we'd be able to make the property more usable for them. So those 3 items come up to a little over $33,000, and that's the change order you have before you.
Questions for Mr. Van Nieuwenhuis? There being none, I'm in line for a motion. Councilmember Jennings.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve Broadway Avenue reconstruction project change order number 2.
Councilmember Hurley.
That's for a second.
Have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? If you will register your vote. And that passes by unanimous vote. Item number 16, Greg, we're back to you.
Good evening. As I mentioned earlier, Haltom City is in $11.7 million sewer upgrades mandated by the federal government. This project will be divided up into roughly 7 or 8 projects. Out of those 7 or 8, 3 or 4 of the projects are well in excess of $1 million. This project before you tonight is probably the most expensive project out of all the 8 that we're doing. When we estimated the construction costs for this project back in 98, 99, when we borrowed the money for it, our estimates were somewhere right around $3 million. However, in that time, as you know, the cost of construction has gone up. The day of the bid opening, the engineer's estimate was at $3.5 million. However, we were pleasantly surprised. The low bid came in at 2.715 million. However, we are recommending that you also include the additive alternate with the bid to bring the total base bid to slightly over 2.74 million to Circle C Construction.
Questions for Mr. Van Hughes on item number 16? There being none, I'm in line for a motion regarding this item. Councilmember Williams?
Yes, sir. I move we approve resolution number R-2002-026-16.
Councilmember Henderson?
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? You will register your votes, and that passes by unanimous vote. We move on now to the boards and commissions. First of all, to resignations. Councilmember Markham.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a resignation from Mr. Brad Dunn from the Park and Recreation Board.
Okay, if you would, gentlemen, vote for ratification of this resignation. And that is unanimous. Further, okay.
I've got an appointment to the same position on the Park and Recreation Board of Shannon Stewart.
Okay.
I move for ratification, please.
Gentlemen, if you will register your ratification of this recommendation, and that carries by unanimous vote. Anything further, Councilmember Markham? Councilmember Henderson? You don't have one? Okay. Councilmember Fowler.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask for ratification for Mr. Howard Wool to be placed on the Park and Recreation Board.
Okay. And that is unanimous vote. Any further resignations, appointments, or reappointments? There being none, I'm in line for a motion regarding the attendance requirements. Councilmember Avery is not here. Councilmember Williams?
Thank you, Mayor. I understand that Councilmember Avery contacted the city secretary earlier this afternoon to report that he was ill, so we wish that he's doing better, and I would like to make a motion to excuse his absence.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Councilmember Markham?
Second.
Councilmember Fowler?
For a second.
If you will, register your vote. And that carries by unanimous vote. And we move now to executive session. The council will meet in closed session pursuant to section 551.071 and 072.
That's good.
There's a late doing Markham.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back in open session. There's no action to be taken on any item discussed in the executive session. The time is 8 minutes till 11. We therefore stand adjourned.